very good morning to my dear friends and colleagues who've joined in from US and from any other geographies. First of all, big thanks to everyone for taking out time for joining this event. My name is Sahil Sahani. Most of you would know me. I am a part of the GDS RMS team, and I also manage the innovation portfolio for this team based out of Gurgaon location. This invite is essentially to really do a preparation kind of a meeting and let you all know in terms of what we are doing for this hackathon event. And we have termed that as a fusion event. That's what you see on the screen. All of you have signed up for this event, and we will be meeting very soon in person, which is next week starting from Tuesday. So before that, we wanted to really bring the energy up and wanted to gather and huddle as a team and really talk about how we have really come together with this program. What is it all about? What can we really expect? And we also have a guest speaker with us today, a partner in fact, who's really helping us plan and manage this event. So once again, a big thanks to all of you who have taken out time. We are also recording this call and we'll be sharing it after this call for benefit and records of everyone. So as I said, it's a fusion event. It's more like a dream event for us in risk management, and it's first of a kind wherein we, as a risk management, are doing it and doing it at a large scale. So it all started about 4 months ago when we met Brian, who is our global innovation leader from the risk management domain. So Brian and myself and Kunal, all of us along with the entire team, we wanted to really see how can we be more efficient, how can we really transform as a business, and what is it that we can do better to make our processes much more efficient. So the idea of conducting a hackathon event kind of incubated at that stage. We then got sponsorship from our leaders like Joe, leaders like Rich from Independence, Garen from Conflicts, and many others, and then it all started evolving since then. So it's been a long journey for us now that we have reached so close, and we can't really believe that hackathon is just 3 days away from us from today. So here is when we wanted to gather as a group, and then, as I said, we have done a partnership with a firm, and the name of that firm is HackerEarth. So HackerEarth as a corporate has been specializing in conducting a range of hackathon events for various corporates. Be it offline hackathons, be it online, they have a very reputed experience of doing it for a number of corporates in India. So we're really blessed and feel lucky to have a partnership with the HackerEarth, and then that's where I think we have a guest speaker as well, Vishy, who's an integral part of HackerEarth team, and have joined us. So he will be doing the talking and will share some thoughts with all of us in terms of what to really expect from such a event, what it really means for a firm like EY, and how in the industry, how in the market have firms utilize such a grand event for their benefit, and how it really can help all of us in making our processes much more efficient. So with that note, I'll not really talk too much and take away time from what our dear guest Vishy has prepared for us. But before I really hand it over to Vishy, I have seen that Kunal has also joined. So Kunal, a big welcome to you. We have a group of people joining in from different teams. So I just set the context, opened the floor. So before I really invite Vishy to talk more and speak about his experience, so would request you to please add on to what I just summarized for the group.
Well, thank you very much, Sahil, and welcome to all the Fusion participants. Let me start with a quick apology that I was a couple of minutes late, but I just didn't want to interrupt the flow and the passion which Sahil was talking about the hackathon. I would say that in all honesty, this is a very bold move, and we really reflected a lot amongst between Joe, Catherine, and in some instances with Rich, and within the GDS leadership as well, that what really differentiates this event with respect to the other ideation sessions and other design thinking workshops that we generally, all of us have been a part of. And the answer was that we are really looking for creating something that so far has been not thought to be possible. And that's where we also thought, or rather we also came up with this, let's say, phrase that innovation is all about limitless possibilities. So I would echo what Sahil said, that a lot of preparation has, at least from our side, and I know being one of the problems SMRs myself, a lot of effort, a lot of diligence has gone in all the problem sponsors and their nominated SMRs working with our teams in risk management services, also with our partners in innovation team in the GDS automation, with our vendors, our strategic alliance partners like Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and UiPath in the last few weeks. And first of all, I really appreciate the time that all of us are busy people, and some of us are global leaders as well. So really appreciate the time and the effort that you all have put in together to really prepare. The objective of this hackathon is that we have 7 problem statements. For each problem statement, a problem statement owner can expect 2 working solutions, and that is another, differentiator that I wanted to call out, that the intent or the end objective or the desired outcome of this 36-hour or 30-hour event would be that we're not looking at a process map, or we are not looking at, a narrative that how a problem can be solved. But the intent would be that as a problem sponsor, as a nominated SMR, we end up with 2 working prototypes or solutions, as we call them, and see that how these solutions and these prototypes can help us in solving the bigger problem that has been put together or put forward by our global risk management leaders. At the same time, we have also made sure that this is unlike, let's say, for the want of a better term, some of the boring design thinking sessions, at least that I have been a part of. And I'm sure that when Vishy will talk about the orchestration of the event, we've tried to make sure that we really give a look and feel of any Silicon Valley. I'm sorry if someone is not speaking. Can you please put yourself on mute? Thank you. Okay, so as I was saying that we have also been very careful that while we are asking so many people to invest a lot of their time, we are also trying to make this event creative. We have also tried to infuse little bursts of energy through some ice-breaking events, some jokes, and I know we call it coffee shots. Probably vodka shots would have been better, but let's do with the coffee. So the intent is that we really simulate and mimic any corporate hackathon that you may have read about or may have perhaps participated in any big technology companies. And that's where we have been really working quite diligently with our hackathon partner, a company called as HackerEarth. And this company, I'm pretty much sure, Vishy, you're going to talk about your credentials yourself, but this company has a solid history in conducting such corporate hackathons for big names like Accenture, Conduent, and we have seen some videos, of course, along with the permission of the companies. And it really seemed to me that we are embracing the components of technology, thinking, and some fun and excitement together. So personally speaking, really very excited, and I'm hoping that this event is going to be very successful. All of you will really come out of it thinking that you got something out of it. There is a good ROI coming in, and I'm hoping that the success of this hackathon is also going to pave the way or set the scene for future iterations of the hackathon to come. We would also invite interactions or questions during this session once, and maybe Vishy, you have some tricks up your sleeve to make it interactive, but certainly please feel free to ask questions about the event, about the company, about Vishy himself. I am also looking forward to be inspired by his journey. And if there are any other questions regarding logistics, etc., I think we have time. We will be very happy to take those as well. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat window, or maybe just call them out as and when we get the opportunities. So without much further ado, let me hand it over to our man of the hour, Vishy. The floor is yours now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kunal. Appreciate your kind words for HackerEarth. I hope you all are able to hear me clearly.
Yes,
We
we
are.
can.
Yes, we are, Rishi.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Kunal, like you summarized, I think this is a great initiative that you guys are sort of thinking about and you've conceptualized. Obviously, we as HackerEarth are humbled and at the same time, feel fortunate that we've gotten this opportunity to partner with you guys and be able to sort of help you guys put together something which will hopefully result into something very, very tangible. And like you said, not be, just yet another ideation exercise, which we all know how fruitful they are, right? So thank you for, sort of setting the tone on that one. And thanks to Sahil as well for sort of summing up the agenda for tonight's call. And I hope the rest of the participants will be able to sort of gather, an overview of sorts in terms of what hackathon is really all about. Sorry if you're not speaking to yourself.
So looks like there are people in the same room and they joined using the same microphone. So I'll request them to put themselves on mute, please.
All guests have been muted.
Rishi, please go ahead. We can't hear you, Rishi.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, now I can. Now we can.
Okay.
Please go ahead, Rishi.
Awesome. Okay. So I was saying the intent of this conversation obviously would be to give all the participants, an overview of what a hackathon is really all about, talk a little bit about what kind of anatomy, an event like this has. And, for the participants, I'm sure there are quite a few on this call who would like to participate in this hackathon. So for them, the takeaways would be, how to prepare, do your homework for this kind of an event. And for the organization, as big as EY, putting in so much energy and sponsorship from the top management, obviously we'll go into a little bit about what you guys can, aim to achieve out of this kind of an event. So that's the kind of agenda that I will try to cover. And while I'm going through it, feel free to stop me in between and sort of ask your questions if you have any. If you have any doubts, I'll be more than happy to answer. There are probably a couple of colleagues from HackerEarth who are also on this call, who are probably on mute right now. But if there are any tactical questions around how will you go about at a very finer level, if you have detailed questions around that, I'm sure my colleagues will be happy to answer and help on that as well. So without much further ado, let me quickly jump into what I'm going to cover today. So briefly about myself, I am managing the engineering function at HackerEarth, and it's been about 1 year since I've joined this organization. Before this, by profession, I'm a software engineer. Obviously, I started my career at Amazon. Amazon India at that point was 20 people. Today it stands at 50,000 people. I had the opportunity to work with the organization for about 7 odd years, and had the opportunity to work on large-scale distributed systems as an engineer. Led multiple teams both in India and in the US. Got a bunch of technologies to work on, and that's where sort of got my hands dirty and feet wet with technology word as such. Post Amazon, I've been leading engineering teams at various startups, in India, in Bangalore specifically, and HackerEarth happens to be the third one of them. So there is some amount of experience that I have in terms of just the technology, the execution, and a little bit of leadership, that I kind of bring into whatever role I am into right now. So that's a bit about myself. Jumping right into what HackerEarth is and what we do as a company. Sahil and Kunal kind of briefed all of you on what we do, with our partners in terms of hackathons and organizing hackathons and maybe hiring challenges. So that's one side of the business. We call that the programs business. The other side of the business is a B2B SaaS product that we have, which is called the assessments product. Without going too much into the details of what the assessments product is all about, what I can tell you is that any company which is looking to hire engineers in the most efficient manner, in the fastest way possible, would probably use something like HackerEarth as a platform to be able to assess and screen those engineering candidates that they want to hire. And our platform kind of provides automated self-service tools to be able to conduct that entire hiring exercise, within a matter of, setting up the tool in few minutes, and then after that, maybe spending a few hours on the tool, and that's about it. So you're able to reduce your time to hire, you are able to, increase and enhance the candidate experience, and so on. So that's what the assessments product is all about. The first one that we talked about was programs, which is where this team steps in, and the team is responsible for organizing hackathons for various big, small size and medium size organizations. We've done a lot of hackathons over the last, I would say, about 6-7 years. So there is a lot of experience in the team that you're dealing with. Now, coming a bit on the kind of going a bit deeper into the hackathon side, largely, HackerEarth depends a lot on the developer community that we've been able to build over these years, 6-7 years. As of today, as we speak, we have more than 3 million developers across the globe who use HackerEarth platform to either practice their technical skills, coding skills, or just participate in hackathons like these, or hiring challenges, right? So that's the size of developer community that we have. To give you a perspective, the biggest developer community that exists today in the world is about 25 million, which is basically for tools like GitHub, right? So we are a fairly large developer community across the globe. And honestly, this community is what defines us today. And needless to say, we are humbled by the love and affection that we get from all these developers across the globe, right? Hackathons, while I will come to some nuts and bolts about hackathon as a concept, but for what it's worth, let me share some metrics on what we've done in the world of hackathons. So at HackerEarth, we've been able to conduct more than 1,500 hackathons till date across the globe, right? So this is not just in India. That's the kind of experience that we have within the team. These 1,500 hackathons or more hackathons have resulted in more than 100,000 ideas and submissions cumulatively for organizations who have participated and candidates who have participated, right? 100,000 ideas. And if you convert those ideas into prototypes, we've created more than 50,000 prototypes for organizations across the globe, right? So that's the kind of number that we're talking about. The reason why I'm talking about these numbers is because we believe we have some experience in helping developers as well as organizations manage these events successfully time and again, right? So today, as we kick this off for EY, I'm positive that this will result in some amazing ideation exercise and hopefully spur, lasting innovation within the organization, right? So that's the hope. Okay, if there are no questions so far, I'll move on. Great. So hackathon as a concept, right? I mean, if you ask anybody who's heard this term, they will come up with their own definition of hackathon, right? So there are a lot of definitions going around. I mean, if you go to internet and Google it, you'll probably find it most commonly used definition as something like, an event where, people who are, involved in software development, like engineers or designers or project managers or product managers, sometimes domain experts, all of these people come together, they collaborate, and they collaborate intensively on software projects. And typically they put together a solution. And when I say put together, that roughly translates into what is called as, hack together, right? So that's why the term hackathon, right? But personally, if you ask me, right, and we do hackathons all the time, and when I say we do hackathons, we're not just doing hackathons for others, we do hackathons internally at HackerEarth as well, right? So personally for me, and especially because I am a software engineer by profession, like I said, a hackathon is like a celebration of sorts, right? Where several individuals come together, without without many preconceived notions about what their roles are in the organization, right? Everyone feels equally responsible and has immense amount of ownership and freedom to build whatever they truly believe in, right? So if they've got an idea, no matter how crazy it is, if they believe in it, they go ahead and build it, right? Obviously, there are ideas which can be crazy, which can be cool, which can be super efficient, which can be super effective. There are prize-winning ideas and so on, right? But the reason why hackathons are so popular today is because it breaks the monotony, right? It breaks the processes that are defined. It breaks the rut that we all kind of go through day in and day out, right? And everybody, every single participant in these hackathons feels that ownership that, yes, this is something that I want to create and I will, go for the kill, so to say, right? So that's why hackathons are so popular, and that's why they have become a norm across the industry. Companies like Facebook are popularly sort of driving this trend further into, the tech world. There are so many features that come out in such big organizations purely because they were some kind of a hackathon idea that got converted into a product, right? There is a long list of such features, popular features, which you and I probably use every day, and all of those came out of hackathons, right? So that's the power of doing, conducting an event like this. Now, typically hackathons are team events, right? So what that means is participants typically form a group of maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 people, depending on how big a team you want, right? And the goal for those teams is basically very simple, right? You want to create something which is functional, it's not just, about the idea in theory, but you actually want to create software, or in some cases you also end up creating some kind of hardware, right? But the idea is to create something which is functional, right? And that goal basically comes from the kind of focus that the hackathon has. Now, various hackathons have, a different kind of focus areas. Some hackathons could be purely about a programming language. Some hackathons could be about an application. They could be about a set of APIs. They could also be about a demographic group of programmers, right? Whereas there are times when there are predefined problem statements related to specific domains where participants are expected to come up with novel ideas and solve, the given set of problems. And I think that's the case in this hackathon as well. There are problem statements which are already defined. So there is a lot of homework that has already been put in by the EY team, I believe, right? Yep. So, and those are all specific, to a particular domain or a broader domain of, let's say, risk management or compliance, right? And obviously, when participants go through those problem statements, they'll be able to gather some kind of context and, then move on to the later stages of the hackathon and start with their ideation exercises. So typically, the goal for the team, like I said, just to reiterate, is to create something functional around these problem statements. And not just keep your ideas in maybe a theory or maybe a document, right? So that's one of the big goals that you have for for any such event. Obviously, hackathons are time bound, which means you typically get 1 or 2 days or 3 days at times to kind of put together your solution, right? And because it is a time bound thing, this entire event kind of becomes a race at times between the teams who are competing to build something, right? Something which is a minimum viable product or some kind of a POC of, proof of concept for their respective ideas, right? So those are the two elements that you have to kind of keep in mind, your goal in terms of creating something functional and the fact that it is a time bound exercise, right? So that's like a 30,000 feet level view of what, a hackathon, kind of looks like. Now I'll dive one level deeper into what are the different phases of a hackathon, right? And like I said earlier, feel free to stop me if you have, any questions in between.
Hey, Vishy,
I have a question.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, who's this?
Well, this was Sahil, and there was someone else who also wanted to
Sure,
speak. So
go
I'll
ahead.
just take a pause. I'll just take a pause. Maybe somebody else was willing to ask a question.
that was me, Kunal Sahil.
How
Vishy,
can I? Okay, go ahead, please,
yeah,
Kunal.
thank you. So, Vishy, I have one question. What you said kind of stuck, which is that a hackathon is kind of celebration of the thoughts. And I do remember some of the initial conversations wherein we were not just talking about providing access to our teams to the best-in-class technology, but also to curate an experience and create an environment that facilitates innovation and where people can hack with minimal intrusion and maximum enablement. So I did previously in my introduction try to do I think perhaps a shoddy job of visualizing how the hack zone and how the overall environment will look like. Maybe can you just briefly also touch upon that um, for these corporate hackathons? I mean, some of these key elements of the hacking zone and some of the other bells and whistles that we have been talking about, just so that the participants, we can create a picture for them that what is the kind of working environment that they can expect. I just don't want the group to come in with any, let's say, doubt that they will be stuck in a boxed room for next X number of hours with no doors and windows and no possibilities of moving around. If you could probably just, briefly elaborate on that, please.
Sure, sure, Kunal. So typically, in my experience, hackathons, and especially the ones that run longer than 24 hours, obviously participants stick around for long hours. They are working sometimes night outs and things like that. But the environment, like I said, is actually very, it's almost like a celebration, right? So you have your bunch of teams working together, in huddles, and there's a very high energy environment that you would find. And obviously, if you need energy shots, there should be some kind of coffee or maybe even Red Bull available, because that's what a lot of developers prefer. So that is just to sort of facilitate some of those long hours that people put in at a stretch. But that doesn't mean that you don't take breaks. Obviously, you take breaks because your body needs rest. And if you're working, let's say 14 hours or 13 hours at a stretch, obviously your productivity goes down. So like Kunal said, you're not going to be locked up in a room and the key will be given to you only after 3 days. That's not the idea. The idea is that you yourself are so driven that you want to finish something and sort of showcase to the rest of the teams and to the judges and to the organization that you've built something which is very, very meaningful. And typically, if again talking from my experience, a lot of times what happens is that you are able to actually do things which are maybe a month-long projects or a quarter-long projects, and teams actually are able to turn those things around in a matter of 2 to 3 days, right? So that's the kind of energy that you would see. Obviously, those are POCs, right? So that's one part of it. Then obviously, in between, there are some games and fun activity planned for the candidates. You can obviously interact with other teams, try to see what they are working on, interact with judges in between, right? So it's like a festival of sorts that you have going on, and you can obviously check in and check out anytime as per your own sort of working rhythm, right? So I hope that kind of answers the spirit of your question, Kunal.
It does, Vishy. Thank you. And I would probably also add that we have put in some cool gadgets as well as a part of the leisure zone. So I will not break the surprise here, but to your point, it's like coming together of all the brain trust of EY and also enjoying and networking alongside. But really, thanks for setting that scene for us. Thank you.
Great. Sahil, I think you had a question.
Yes, Vishy, I did have, and I was actually willing to just understand, and maybe also for the benefit of everyone, how is this hackathon that we're planning and we're doing is different from a typical hackathon that you have seen happening in the industry. I know one difference is that we're not doing a 36-hour marathon event. We're taking a break in between. But the kind of preparations we've done, the kind of understanding and problem review part which has happened, and which is really taking a lot of time from our people. They have teamed together, they've got onto calls, they are evaluating what kind of technology stacks are needed and how can we really arrive at a solution. So just wanted your inputs and your viewpoints on the overall merit and you see in following this approach. And even if this is a different hackathon, what still are the great advantages of planning it in this manner?
Sure. So I think, at a broad level, like I said, the hackathons as a concept, do not really change. You can just obviously, think about your own specific problem statements, right? And typically those problem statements come from a lot of thought that goes prior to, the actual event. Right. So in that sense, it is obviously very different. But as far as you are able to convey, the business domain related problems, I think after that, when candidates actually start working on it and they have absolute clarity in terms of what they want to achieve, I think it's all the same, right? Then it is more about maintaining that momentum and making sure that you are able to sort of sustain that for the given time and be able to derive something fruitful out of it. So and especially for a company like EY, these are very real world problems, right? So these are problems, sometimes if you talk to pure tech companies, the problem statements are very futuristic, right? You are working on something which is very, very cutting edge, right? There isn't a lot of adoption for those kind of technologies, which is already out there, right? But in your case, right, these are proven, sort of domains, right? Compliance, risk management, all of these have, these are age-old domains. And to bring in innovation requires in these kind of domains requires a fresh set of thinking, right? And that's why probably it kind of stands out, because you're trying to do something in a domain which is as old as this and still be sort of trying to bring in that innovation. So I would say that's the differentiating factor. Obviously a lot of it depends on what the candidates think about it and how they are able to bring in that out of the box thinking into this. So that remains to be seen, but that's how I would say it is different.
And thanks, Rishi. Thanks for summarizing it very well for us. I'll also like to mention the fact that the level of preparedness the team has done. This is only with an intent to make sure that we end up utilizing our core time in the hackathon day most productively. So we just wanted to be ready with our thought process. We wanted the skill set and the developers to understand the kind of solutions which are expected to be built, and more importantly, what are those prerequisites which will really enable us to build on more efficient and more attractive solutions. So I think keeping that thought in mind, this preparedness has happened. So I just wish, and I am very, very hopeful as well, that the teams will get the required amount of ROI, and the kind of time that they've invested already will not go down the drain. So yeah, that's my, I think, closing remark on that question. Thank you so much.
Sure, Sahil. In fact, your question kind of helps me dovetail into the next topic that I wanted to go into. So, hackathons, I wanted to bring, give you a sort of picture of what kind of anatomy a hackathon event has, right? So typically there are 4 phases in any kind of hackathon. First phase is the discovery phase, right? Now, discovery phase is basically about identification of your problem domain, right? Or a strategic area, right? Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these, kind of activities are planned and done as homework even before the actual event starts, right? And this is actually derived from the insights that you get from top management or the sponsors, in the organizations who are sponsoring such an event, right? So that's what the discovery phase is about. And obviously, once you get these insights and you identify a strategic problem domain, you translate those insights into themes of innovation. and you kind of convert them and translate them into problem statements, which I think in your case, in EY's case, has already happened, right? So there are detailed problem statements, and I was able to go through some of them. There are very detailed problem statements. There are exit criterias there, which is brilliant. I think if you're able to define clearly, and I think you've really cracked the first part of the puzzle, one piece of the puzzle, which is discovery phase, right? The second phase is the actual ideation, right? This is where participants come in. They do idea collection, right? They brainstorm on a lot of different ideas as to how to go about solving a particular problem statement. They may look at multiple problem statements at a time and then decide which one to pick. They might, like one particular problem statement, and they may just go after that, right? So a lot of brainstorming happens at the ideation stage. And once they have a rough sense of what they are going to, take take forward, they will graduate their idea, and that is what we call as idea graduation, right, to a more firm kind of a picture in their minds, right? So this is more like a bottoms up ideation on some of the strategic goals that are defined in the discovery phase. Obviously the ideas themselves can be crowdsourced. Sometimes you have purely internal teams at hackathons which are participating. Sometimes you have internal plus external participation. It totally depends on what kind of participation an organization allows, right? So that's the ideation phase for you. The third phase and the penultimate stage is the POC creation, right? This is where you actually conceptualize and concretize your ideas, right? You check for novelty, you check for functionality, you check for feasibility, and most importantly, you actually check your POC and your prototypes against alignment to the goals that were defined. And let me reiterate this, I cannot emphasize more on this, but anything that you are creating, irrespective of how smart or how cool or how great a solution that is, if it does not align with the goals that have been set out, honestly, it doesn't achieve much, right? So that's a very, very important thing. Before any of the participants dive deeper into their POC creation or their prototype creation or the solutioning aspect, make sure you're interacting with the judges, with other teams, and just doing a dip check in terms of the direction that you're taking. You do not want to end up, like Sahil mentioned, wasting 3 days and creating something which will not yield the desired results, right? So that's something which is very, very important. So we've covered discovery, we've covered ideation. The third phase was POC creation, which is where actually the candidates kind of submit, their final POCs. The fourth phase, and this is important for you, Kunal and Sahil, the fourth phase would be the execution phase. So once you get, let's say, 50, 100 or whatever number of submissions, right? These will be, some sort of working POCs that you will get. Hopefully, you will be able to stack rank those POCs in terms of, viability, right? Market viability. And in your case, market viability would still be, let's say, internal use, right? So you will have internal stakeholders who would probably want to use some of these solutions that candidates come up with. You would want to check for that. You would want to check for scale. So is it like, a POC may work for one team but may not work for the other team, or, the POC works with only 2 people but may not work for, when it is used at scale for hundreds of people and things like that, right? So you want to test for that. And once you've tested and you kind of stack rank those POCs, you then take your picks, and under your innovation wing or the R&D wing or the incubator wing, whatever you may call it, you then pick up those top 2, 3, 5 ideas and take them to a logical conclusion, which means you basically sponsor them further and get them into something which is production ready, right? So that's the execution phase for you. So I'll reiterate, there's a discovery phase. In this hackathon, it has already happened. There is an ideation phase which will start, right, I think on Tuesday. Then there is actual POC creation by the candidates. And the fourth phase, and a very important phase, would be execution, where all your ideas get shortlisted, they get judged basis various parameters, obviously by the judges who themselves would be domain experts. And then they take maybe top 3 or top 5 or top 10 ideas to the production stage. Does that make sense?
It does very well, Rishi, for sure. And thank you so much for this valuable insights. And I think some of these are really precious and lots to learn, lots of important nuggets that I have picked personally in terms of how to really plan better.
Sure.
And how to really, team together, and what is it that we need to be mindful of when we start working and start delivering towards building those solutions. There are a couple of questions that we are getting on the chat window. Time is less, but I'd still like to pick one which came from Mike. And I know that I and Greg have also been discussing some of these things in parallel. So the question from Mike is that the Independence PICT, which is the process Mike is representing, and he's coming from US to represent the process. So this group has two items to address within the same problem statement, Vishy. And they want some guidance if each of the two teams that are being built should focus on one problem at a time, or should both the teams look at things completely and try to solve the problem from a comprehensive perspective. So essentially, in other words, when this larger statement, this larger problem has two different pieces which are not interlinked. So if they form two teams, one option could be that team one picks up one subset of the problem statement and two picks up the second subset. Or second way to structure this would be that both the teams, they pick up both the subsets together. So what would be your guidance and opinion on how to go about with this team formation?
Yeah. So what I would say is, like I mentioned, in the discovery phase, you have clearly identified that there are two different problem statements. And if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me right now, but there was something related to US tax return, etc. And there was something related to reconciliation. If I'm not wrong. Yeah. So what I would say is, do not get fixed upon a particular way of executing this or going about this. I would say keep your teams open to the idea of solving both the problem statements, because you never know which team will be able to solve which problem first, or which team will be able to solve which problem better, right? So start with the idea of solving both the problems, having both the teams solve both the problems. But that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do that. If in between you realize that, hey, maybe one, team A has gotten a better hang of problem one, and team B has gotten a better hang of problem two, then you sort of give them that guidance, as domain experts, and tell them, hey, why don't you focus on this and just get this solved, and why don't you focus on that and get that solved? Because that is just smart execution then. Right? So you can always take that call maybe at the end of the ideation exercise, right? When both the teams kind of have some kind of idea as to how they want to solve a problem statement, you hear them out and then tell them that looks like you can solve both, or looks like you can only solve one of them, or you should be solving only one of them. So I wouldn't say get fixed upon that strategy as of today. Let the team spend like a few hours, maybe 5-6 hours, thinking and brainstorming about those problem statements, both of them. And once they have some idea, then you take that call. Does that make sense?
It does, and this is Kunal. And just to add to it, I guess maybe that's also a call that Greg, as the overall sponsor, can make, that between both the teams, which, to your point, which one feels as if they have a stronger understanding and perhaps capability of solving one of the two challenges. So maybe each of the teams can start with one challenge each, and later on, if a particular team finishes the challenge, one challenge quickly, they can still move on to the other challenge while the other team can continue to focus. The bottom line is that we don't know that even if both the teams are working on both the challenges, what kind of solutions that these teams will bring up. But I guess in my mind, the best way would be that let's assign one challenge each to each of the teams based on the discussions in the ideation phase and the guidance coming from Greg as a sponsor. And then during the course, if there's a change in the strategy, or some team is faster and has completed their challenge, wants to probably try their hand in the next one as well, I don't think there is any sort of hindrance or a barrier to that. And I think, Greg, that's exactly what he is also mentioning, that he would want both the teams to attempt initially both the challenges, and then perhaps later on we can course correct as needed.
Yeah, the other nuance that I would like to point out, and this is again sort of coming from the experience that we have, especially if you're talking about engineers, hackathons, when they look at it, the whole idea is to actually have that independence, right? To be able to work on a problem statement of their choice, right? And it kind of ties them down if you tell them that, hey, this is exactly what you're going to solve and there is no other problem statement available for you to pick up. I would say let them make that choice, but sort of have that room to course correct and use your judgment maybe after a day or so or half a day or so, and give them that guidance that, hey, looks like you are proceeding well in this direction, so why don't you go ahead and solve this, right? But at the beginning, let them kind of have a crack at both.
Thank you. I just realized that we are at the top of our time, in fact, 2 minutes over. Perhaps any last question? Otherwise, this recording will be available, and certainly we all know the core members of the Fusion team, so if any outstanding questions, we can always drop a note and an email, and we'll make sure that we are responding back. But maybe any last questions that anybody would like to raise?
So if there are no questions, I could probably just conclude by giving maybe 2 or 3 practical tips to the participants.
Hello.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just quickly like to ask you one thing, that being on the technical side of the event, what advice, or rather expert advice, you usually give to the participants who are not too much tech savvy? Or I mean, what basic expectations you set from the participants? I mean, they're not too sound as developers, but what are your basic expectations or your suggestions, or rather expert advice you would like to give to the participants?
So first thing first, right? I mean, teams typically, at hackathons do not have all developers at all times, right? You will probably want to form a team which has all sorts of, experience, right? So you would probably want, some kind of a domain expert. You would obviously want an engineer. You may want some kind of a project manager with you, probably to help you out, with the planning and the execution of things, right? So you want a mix of capabilities in your team. So that's the first thing. But in terms of, coming to the technical side, I actually have, 3 solid tips for you if you guys want to follow, and this is pretty much for every participant, right? First things first, you have to know what you want to accomplish, right? So is it a new language or a new technology that you want to learn, right? Or is it more about collaboration that you're participating in this hackathon? Or maybe there is, some kind of other incentive. Maybe, in some cases it is the prize money that motivates a lot of engineers. So be it, right? But you have to know what you're looking for, right, from this event. Is it your own learning? Is it about learning team activity, working in a team environment and collaborating, or is it something else? The second thing is, as specifically if you are an engineer, or you're trying to hack together a solution, you have to do your homework, which means understand the problem statement really, really well, right? Go over it 10 times, 100 times if you may, but make sure that you understand the problem statement and the theme of the hackathon. Because if you do not do that, your solution may not be aligned to the goals that have been set, and it will be a waste of time. So do not do that, right? Obviously, in terms of homework, you can also brush up your programming skills, right? You can go through some of the open source libraries or frameworks that are available for developers to use. You can look at free templates or prototyping tools that are available, right? These are things that you can do as homework, right? So that you are prepared when the day comes and you are ready to sort of fire all cylinders. So that's the second tip. The third and the last thing, and this is probably where I would want to conclude, for all candidates, you have to be open, and you got to be open to learn, and you have to be willing to teach, right? That is what ultimately the hackathon is going to be about, right? You will learn something at the end, and you will probably help somebody else learn something. That's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vishy, and these are great thoughts. And we really, had a great time listening to your, experiences in the way that I think that you summarized and how we can really prepare ourselves. I think these are great, takeaways for us. So thank you so much once again for your participation, for sharing all the valuable insights.
Thank you so much.
Looking at that looking at that time, I'll quickly say that maybe I'll just hold on to another 1 minute or so if that's okay with everyone, because it would be really unfair from my side if I do not really, introduce the team that we had in terms of who are managing this entire event for us. So we have a team of champions. I'll quickly introduce them. I'll start off first with my co-partner, Kate, who's based out of Poland, and she and I have really kind of worked together since the beginning of this event, and then we also had the great company of other team members. So I'll request Kate if you can quickly introduce yourself and then pass it on to the team. They can also talk for a quick introduction to the group.
Thank you, Sahil. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for participating in the webinar. I hope you will find it useful. I am managing the event along with Sahil and with our core project team. I must say that this has been amazing and very intense experience, and we are very much looking forward to meet with all of you next week and to see the outcomes of the hacking. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. So we have Dominica, who is sharing the screen. Dominica, could you quickly introduce yourself too? I'm not sure if she's able to hear us.
I had to unmute. I had to unmute.
Great.
It was more complicated. Hello, everyone. I'm Dominika, and I'm the very person who is asking you for your pictures and registration. So if you don't want to get another polite email from me. No, I'm just joking. But no, we are really excited and extremely happy for your cooperation and because of the fact that we will meet each other soon. So thank you and see you soon in Bangalore.
Thank you so much, Dominica. Moving very quickly, Rajeshri, I know you're there. Would you like to quickly introduce yourselves too?
Thanks very much, Sahil. Hi, everyone. I'm Rajeshwari Swaminathan, part of the project management team here. And likewise, what Dominica said, I'm sure most of you, my GDS colleague, would have known me by now because I'm like the chaser. That's how I want to term myself here. And apart from that, also to many of the HackerEarth members here, I think we have exchanged quite a bit of emails out here. So thank you very much to all of you for being very patient. And I can definitely assure you that all of us are going to have a great time next week. Looking forward to seeing one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rajeshri. Anudeep, you are next. You are our project manager. Please go ahead.
Hello everyone, I'm Anudeep, part of the core project team, and first of all, Vishy, thank you so much for this wonderful talk, and it was very insightful for all of us to learn through your conversation how an hackathon has to be done, and thanks for sharing these golden words of wisdom, and I'm sure we have our good takeaways from this session, and looking forward to meet you all in Bangalore soon, and you have set a great pace for the event, you have set the tone, and I think let the best team win. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for participating in this session.
Thank you so much, Anu. And we also have team members from HackerEarth team. So Vipin, it all started between us. I still remember the first call that we had, and Vipin is the account manager. We have Ankita, who is the program manager for us. And then we also have Manmeet. I'm not sure if Manmeet is there on the call or not, but very quickly passing it on to you all for a very quick introduction, please.
So I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
All right. So thanks, Sahil, and thanks, V, so much. As you've already mentioned, a lot of preparation, hard work has already gone to this. So a lot of work has been done leading to the hackathon. We have done a lot of hackathons in the past in many organizations, but this is something really exciting for HackerEarth itself, right? So really look forward to seeing all of you next week. And we are pretty sure it's going to be a really good hackathon. So we hope all of you enjoy it, have a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Vipin, and please extend our heartfelt thanks to the team as well. And then time is running fast, so I'll not really hold everyone for long. So once again, my heartfelt thanks to you, Vishy, for being so kind, for taking out time for us. And I mean, these were great words of wisdom, and I think this will really help the entire crew prepare very well for the upcoming hackathon, and we'll taste success together. And lastly, thanks to all the participants who have joined this call today. And like I think there were some comments in the chat window. If you have any more questions on the logistics part of it, on the planning side of it, or anything around any aspect, feel free to drop us a note. We will be there to help you on that. On that note, I know many of us will be traveling from far, so wish everyone safe travels, have a comfortable journey. All of us would be arriving in Bangalore on Monday next week. Please expect a pleasant climate. It's not hot out there. We'll have a great time together, and I'll see you all in person very soon. So thank you so much once again, everyone. Thanks, Kunal, for your for sharing your perspective too. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Sahil.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.